Hello?
Hey, this is Brandon.
Hey, Brandon, it's Mike here.
How's it going, Mike?
Good. How are you today?
Doing all right.
Super excited today. Eagles, Colts today, 8:30 p.m. ESPN. How excited are you for this matchup?
I mean, it's going to be a good one. You have an Eagles team that looked pretty good at the end of the end of the second half of the Jaguars game last week. They struggled in that first half mightily,
Yeah.
but they come in this week, and Nick Foles. I just can't see him being as bad as he was last game. I think he's proven in the past that he's been able to rebound, although, that is a concern if he doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
because, you have this offensive line missing missing really three starters, because you have Evan Mathis out, and then you have not only Lane Johnson still suspended, but you have his backup, Alan Barbre, also missing time.
So let's talk.
So,
Let's talk briefly
there's a
about
good
that
mix.
offensive line here. How big of a blow is it that Evan Mathis is out for this extended period of time? Do we know when he's coming back?
He's going to be back. Well, he can start practicing in 6 weeks, but he can't return onto the active roster until 8 weeks from now. And that's the first game he'll be eligible to play, I believe, is on November 10th, and that's like a Monday Night Football game against the Panthers. Yeah, but we'll see if he's ready by then. But it's going to be a big loss with him gone, because he's such a good run blocker, and the Eagles run so much. They rely on Sean McCoy a lot as a big part of their offense. So it's really going to be interesting to see how they do without him. I think these guys might be able to get by in pass protection, but as run blockers, I'm kind of curious to see if they'll be able to open lanes for LaShawn McCoy and see how effective the run game will be.
How did the backup O linemen? I can't remember their name off the top of their head. Did they impress you in that second half game?
Sorry about that. You're coming a little choppy.
Sorry. The Eagles' offensive line. We had some backups come in for Mathis and for Lane Johnson. How well do you think they performed? And are they essentially a very good Band-Aid right now, or would you rather we go out and get somebody else?
I really liked how this backup offensive line played in the preseason. I thought coming into this summer, a lot of people, including myself, thought the backup offensive line was a question mark. And I think through 4 preseason games, they really played well. So, that's definitely a positive heading into this situation. At the same time, those are backups playing against other backups in the preseason. They're not so much backups playing against starters, although some of the Eagles' backups did play against the Steelers starters in that third preseason game, and they really did hold their own. So we'll see if that can hold up here. They also brought in Wade Smith, who's a veteran, who was a Pro Bowler in 2012, spent this summer with the Seahawks in training camp, but then they cut him. He has a lot of experience. That doesn't always mean much if you can't play. But it certainly doesn't hurt to have a veteran option there if something is to go wrong. It's going to be interesting to see, because I think it's either Smith or Dennis Kelly starting at left guard, and then you have Andrew Gardner probably starting at right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see. One thing I do want to note is that, you have, not only do you have Lane Johnson out, but you have Matt Tobin out, who is probably the team's immediate backup behind Barbre, but he's dealing with a high ankle sprain that he suffered in the preseason. I think if you have him right now, I think he's probably a better option than either Kelly or Gardner. So he's kind of a under-the-radar loss there.
So the Eagles signed recently offensive guard Wade Smith. Do you see him making an impact today?
They definitely didn't give a good indication if he's going to play or not. They brought him in just last week, I believe it was on Tuesday or so, and it was late on Tuesday. So he's really been here less than a week. Adam Kaplan, ESPN NFL Insider, tweeted out that Smith has apparently picked up the offense pretty quick. We'll see how much that really means tonight. But it definitely seems like he has a chance to play. They gave him some first-team reps, I believe, this week in practice. But they also gave some first-team reps to Dennis Kelly, and that's a guy who not only has been with the team this whole summer, but he's been here. He was all of here last year too when Chip Kelly got here. So it's going to be interesting to see if Smith or Kelly gets the start. I think either way, there's probably not a huge difference there. I think just the fact that Kelly has the familiarity being in the scheme, I think he makes more sense right now.
All right. On a more serious note, Nick Foles, MVP this year or MVP?
Well, first of all, I mean, that's not without a reach if he can take advantage of these opportunities that he missed last week. Like I said, there were just so many plays looking back at that game where there was open wide receivers and he just wasn't seeing them. Instead of stepping up into the pocket, he's drifting to the right and he's drifting into pressure, and he's getting sacked and he's fumbling, or later in the game he had that interception because I think he was just frustrated at that point and he was just trying to force it, which you never want to see. So I don't think he's going to win the MVP, but if he can, if he stops making, or at least he'll have the best chance to if he can stop making these mistakes and really pick it up, because I think guys are going to be open here, and this offense can still move the ball and score, and it has a lot of playmakers, but it's all about him just fixing those mistakes.
Donovan McNabb recently said that Nick Foles isn't the Eagles' long-term starter. Is McNabb just throwing out stuff here, or do you think he may be making some sense?
Well, I think McNabb was more saying that he's not sure that he's ready to commit to Nick Foles yet, and I think that's about where everyone is for the most part. I think a lot of people still want to see more. I mean, you have performances like he did last week, and you're kind of wondering, is this a guy we're really going to commit to over the long term if he's going to be making these mistakes and he doesn't rebound from it? I mean, obviously now he has the chance to rebound and he has the chance to prove he's worth the long-term commitment. But that's a funny thing, you talk about franchise quarterback and all of that. I mean, it really doesn't mean anything except in talk until the contract extension time comes and you actually have to commit to him and you have to pay him. And that's going to be after this year at the earliest. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how the Eagles feel about that. Again, it's not going to be pretty if he continues to play like he did last week. I think he'll find a way to rebound, and he probably will end up being the guy if he can rebound.
All right, so we have Riley Cooper as our second guy. We have Jeremy Maclin as our first guy, and we got Darren Sproles as our number 2 running back. Deshaun Jackson was recently injured. Do you think that with the addition of Sproles, is that we were looking for a small, speedy guy, and we found that in Sproles? Do you think Chip Kelly replaced Deshaun Jackson with Sproles?
All right, can you repeat that last part? Sorry.
Do you think Chip Kelly replaced Jackson's size and speed with Darren Sproles?
Yeah, I think, you look at Sproles and he's a versatile player. Not only is he a running option, and that's what they seem to have him pegged as right now. He had 11 carries, I believe, last week, including the one for a touchdown run, 49 yards, which is the longest of his career. And, he's also pretty adept at catching the ball. I believe he's had at least 70-plus catches over the past couple of seasons. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. You send him downfield on a wheel route. You throw a screen to him. And so he does offer some of that kind of ability, that playmaking ability. He obviously doesn't have the long-term speed that Jackson does on the outside. He's an outside wide receiver. But, he is an offensive weapon, and I don't like to just label him as a running back or a wide receiver, really, because he really offers both. And then not even just on offense, but you have to look at what he can do on punt returns like he did last week. Maybe he's not the same threat he is to take it to the house that Deshaun was when he could return. But one thing he's definitely more consistent in getting the ball and moving forward. That's something Deshaun, sometimes you try to break the big play, so he's backpedaling or, taking negative yards, trying to, find a lane for the big play, where Sproles is kind of a more no-nonsense returner. Mm-hmm. He's getting the ball, he's making a cut or two, he's going to get positive yards. So different players, but I definitely think that was a good addition, especially because they only gave up a fifth-round pick to get him, and to get a guy like that for only at the cost of what a fifth-round rookie would be, it's probably it makes sense because that fifth-round rookie you're probably getting anyway isn't going to make the impact that he's been able to make.
Yeah. Let's switch on the defensive side here. Brandon Graham, a guy I have been very high on. Do you believe that he's going to be the guy in Philadelphia, or will we eventually trade him away for a pick or a player?
Well, I don't think he's going to get traded because after this year, his contract voids. Yeah, so his contract voids as soon as the season is over. He's going to be a free agent. And, I think the Eagles are actually going to try to bring him back. I know that seems a little weird because everyone has been trying to trade him away, and everyone feels like he's not an ideal fit in the 3-4. And let's be honest, he's not because, he doesn't have the ability to drop back in coverage, and that's something we've seen. It's not just anecdotal. We've seen him in the preseason or even in games where he's dropping back and he kind of just, he just can't play smoothly in space. But on the other hand, his pass rush is just, it's too good to just say, oh, we can't use this guy because he can't drop into coverage. So it's kind of a unideal situation. But at the same time, if you're willing to pay, and he's a decent pass rusher, and he's more than a decent pass rusher. He's been a good one. And maybe they try to bring him back, or maybe, they just figure, all right, he doesn't fit. We'll just let him walk in free agency, and then maybe you get the compensatory pick for him next year, for losing him. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I don't really have a great sense yet, but I'm not ruling out a return to Philadelphia.
All right, so let's talk about our safeties. Everybody loves to talk about our safeties, how we haven't had a good one since Brian Dawkins. What do you see in Nate Allen? Do you see anything special in Nate Allen, or is he just going to be a middle-of-the-road guy? Do you think he's going to be that, or do you think he can eventually turn around and play well?
I think you have a decent starting safety corps here with the combination of Malcolm Jenkins and Nate Allen. I don't think they're all pro players by any means, but I really don't think they're bad. I really think you could do worse. I think Nate Allen if Nate Allen is your second best starting safety, you could really do worse than that. I mean, he's been solid, not a playmaker. He's actually improved leaps and bounds as a tackler. I mean, that's something he was not very good at when, the wide nine was here. And
at least he's not Patrick
really
Chung.
Play the run. Yes. Yeah, yes. Patrick Chung, just the fact that he was here last year and he's starting, almost anything's better than him. So he's gone.
Yeah.
And now you have Allen, who, like you said, is solid. And then I like Malcolm Jenkins a lot, actually. Again, he's not an all-pro player by any means, but he comes in here. He's a smart player. I could throw it around a lot. But it's true because he's able to – you can see him pre-snap getting the defense in position. He's talking out there. He's vocal. He plays with emotion. I think he's pretty good in coverage. So, I watched him all at training camp. He was easily one of the best players. One of the best defensive backs, standing out in coverage all the time. He had a few interceptions. As a tackler, he's capable of putting big hits, too. You saw it last week when I believe it was Alan Hearns caught a ball on Jacksonville, and, he got like helicopters spun around because I think Jenkins hit him either from the top or the bottom. And it looked like a fumble. I ruled it an incomplete pass. But, you could just see from that play, he can really put the hit on people. So, you have those guys, and they're not playmakers necessarily, but they're really enough to get you by. You can have a good defense with those guys as your safeties.
Mm-hmm. One more Eagles question here. Earl Wolf, is he the guy in the future?
That's a good question. I'm really not sure because, he had the opportunity this summer to really beat out Nate Allen, and he didn't really step up to the plate. He played at best, equal with Nate Allen, and that's not enough. He had to come in and really establish himself and take the job, and that's not something he did. At the same time, Nate Allen had a really good summer, so it's not just like Allen was struggling and Wolf couldn't get it. But moving forward, it remains to be seen because Wolf had an injury issue last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of weird because it felt like he was active, or he was healthy. It seemed like he might have been healthy enough to play, but did he want to play through the injury? I'm not sure. It was a really weird situation there. He looked good when he played, but again, I think that was part of the Patrick Chung effect. I think Patrick Chung looks so bad that you put Wolf in for him, and of course he's going to look good, or because just by comparison, he's not as bad as Pat Chung. So I'm not really sure about Wolf. It's kind of a question mark. I think he definitely has the chance to be. Because Nate Allen is going to be a free agent again after the season. He's going to have the chance to step up, but he really just has to do it.
Well, all right, here, switching gears very much. In my hands, I hold probably the most beautiful piece of literature this year until next year's edition, the Eagles Almanac of 2014, written by various Eagles authors. How did this start?
This started back in, I guess it was 2012. I've been only writing for them since this year's edition, but it's a good group of writers, a lot of guys who have been around the Eagles blog scene and the internet scene, if that's even a thing. A lot of good guys. I think it started because there's the Football Outsiders Almanac. They have, which is a great website, great resource. They have their own one, and obviously that's more focused on all 32 teams. This one is one that was designed to be just all about the Eagles, and I think there's such a good market out there. The Eagles fan base is so big, and there's so much like a big thirst for knowledge and Eagles material and Eagles content. So I think it only made sense that you put together some of the good writers out there, and you release this product, and you have a complete preview to the season, and it's a good mix of not only just analysis and more serious stuff, but it has some lighter stuff too, some easy reading, some fun stuff. It's just a good variety of material, and I think it's only I believe it's only I can't remember the price off the top of my head. That's not good, but it's only about 10 or so, I believe, for the PDF download, and about 25 for the paperback. So it's a pretty good deal for what you get.
Yeah, I've definitely been enjoying it. One little thing, though, I like to take up with you guys is Jason Kelsey is number 62, not 63. I'll bring that up with your editor, Brian Solomon. You have a very nasty tweet coming his way. Last thing, because I'm not very good at interviews. What year? When is it finally going to happen? When are we going to see Mike Kafka in the Hall of Fame? Is it? It's never too soon at this point.
That's exactly right. And the thing is he even with anyone right now?
Tampa Bay. He's with Tampa Bay.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there.
Well, it's only a matter of time before we might actually get some action, because you have Josh McCown not looking that great, and then you have Mike Glennon, but you're always one injury away. So it's never too late for Mike Kafka yet.
If Kafka had played as well as he did in that Atlanta game, and Jeremy Maclin will forever hold a small grudge in my heart for dropping that pass on fourth down. If Kafka had played that well in the Giants game, do you think he's still with Philadelphia?
I think it is different. I don't know if he's still with them now, but I think he would have been with them a little bit longer. I think they keep him instead of Trent Edwards. Possibly.
That's right. He lost the job to Trent Edwards.
Here's the thing with Trent Edwards is that like apparently Edwards and Foles were they're really good friends, or they became good friends, and Edwards kind of became Foles' mentor, where I guess Kafka wasn't really mentoring Foles as much, so that kind of gave him the advantage too. Well,
Jason Avant scored a touchdown for the Panthers yesterday. Are Philadelphia Eagles fans happy to see Avant in a different color?
I think they should be, because as much as Avant is a good guy, and you don't wish him any bad at all, and you just wish he does well. But the fact is, he really wasn't good in his last year here in Philadelphia. Only averaging about like 2-point-something yards after the catch, which is pretty bad. He had a couple drops, I think 2 or 3, which isn't really characteristic of him. He was just slow, and I don't mean that in a way where I'm trying to say he's a bad guy or anything. It was just a business decision, and I think you have a chance to bring in a guy like Jordan Matthews, who's super fast, and he's young, and he has just a really high ceiling as compared to Avant, who is what he was at that point. Just a guy who can block. He's going to make a catch here and there. But he really kind of limited the offense, I felt like, because you'd watch the Eagles, he'd make a catch, he has all this open field in front of him, and then he's tackled from behind because, he's just not very fast, because that's just not who he is. So I think, that's probably something Chip Kelly noticed as well, and I'm sure they were happy to get a guy who, like Jordan Matthews, is, like a yak monster. He's getting the ball, and then he's taken off as soon as he gets it, and he's gone. So I really just think he came down to Avant not being a really good fit for the Eagles offense.
If Marcus Smith and Jordan Matthews had switched pick positions, are Eagles fans happy with that draft?
That's funny because you asked that, and they might be. I think there's so much hype around Matthews, and just the fact that he's in a position where he's ready to play now because the Eagles did release Deshaun, and then they released Avant. So then you already have an opening at wide receiver by default just because of that. The thing was that, outside linebacker, no matter who they took, even if they took, let's say, Anthony Barr, or, if they took Clowney, I'm sure Clowney would play, but they didn't have a top pick. But,
yeah.
Even if they took, like, it's a Barr, or like a guy, like a top pick, he's probably not going to play too much anyway because you still have your starters who are Trent Cole and Connor Barwin. They're not going to bench either one of those guys. And then we were talking about Brandon Graham earlier. I mean, he's still obviously a big contributor too off the bench. So that's 3 guys, 3 outside linebackers, the rookies behind, pretty much no matter what. When talking about Marcus Smith, like, you can't just write him off at this point.
Are we also forgetting about Vinny Curry?
Well, yeah. I mean, even just as Vinny Curry is a pass rush specialist too off the bench at defensive end. It's just I don't see them using Smith there, but just you have these other guys that are ahead of him, and that's not because Smith is a bad player or a bust necessarily. It's more just he's a rookie. And, he has to earn his playing time, just like those guys had to earn theirs.
Yeah.
I mean, remember when, Curry is a rookie, and then in 2012, and you have the veteran Darryl Tapp starting over him, and then
Darryl Tapp.
Brandon Graham.
Wow.
Yeah, same thing with Brandon Graham. I mean, you have those guys that had to earn their playing time, too. So it's not going to just be given to Smith, and I think that's better. I think it's good that he's not playing right now because he hasn't done anything to earn it yet. So once he does, I mean, I think that'll be for the best.
How much of a relief was it to come out of that second half in that Jaguars game, being down 17-0? I know I went to lunch just cursing my Eagles. Just how can you lose this badly to the Jaguars? And then come out and Chip Kelly makes adjustment. How refreshing is that after so many years of Andy Reid? I
think it was, it was getting ugly, and you were at the point where you're like, oh man, like it's only 17-0. But you felt it was almost like 30-0 just because of the way they were playing. You're like, oh man, there's just no way they're gonna come back. And then, then you kind of get a reality check because the Eagles score quick. They score the 7, and you're like, oh, this is still the team that can score pretty fast. They're capable of putting these drives together where they can. It only takes a couple plays, and they're getting the home run. So that it is just different in that sense, where you have this quick strike offense, and you're really never out of the game if that's the case, because it doesn't take that much time for them to get back. And then you look at the defense too, which totally just failed to get off the field on third downs last year. I don't remember the exact percent it was, but it wasn't good. And then they come out against the Jaguars and 2 for 14. They only let them convert 2 times, and their first conversion I don't think came until like the third quarter. So you have this quick strike offense, and you have this defense that looks to be at least a little better in one phase. And I think you look at this team, and you're like, all right, well, if they're down, maybe they can get a stop here now, and they're going to be able to score quick.
In the Saints game last year, I will completely take the blame for that. It's a whole other story. Do you think, did Chip Kelly not manage time well in that game? Did he use his offense too quickly and left his defense out on the field for that final seconds there? Do you think Chip Kelly in that final few moments needed to really just rein in and really just run the clock out?
I think the hard part about that is you never know when you might try to. I understand what you're saying, and I think there's some validity to it. But the problem is that you never know when you're going to have that chance when you have that big play there. You can't just always pass that up because what if you're trying to dink and dunk here and it's not working and you give up the big play? Well, then you're not scoring at all. So the thing when I think about back to the Saints game, and I wrote about this last week, wasn't the end of the game. It was really the first half where you saw, not to pile on Nick Foles here again, but you just saw really the same thing he did against the Jaguars, where he kind of came out and he kind of, he just looked a little jumpy. He didn't look like he was settled in. He's missing wide open receivers. You can look back at the All-22, and it's not even like their wide receivers are on the other side of the field. It's like they're within his sight, and there's a specific play that sticks out. It was 3rd and 7 or so, and he has Avant underneath who's wide open for a check down. But again, that's Jason Avant, and he's not going to get you by the marker. Meanwhile, you have Brent Selleck literally wide open 20 yards downfield. I just don't know how he doesn't see him on that play, and that just seems to be an issue that we saw with him last week. I think about a defense in that Saints game that forced 2 turnovers, and looking back historically since 1997, teams are there's something like 44-0 in playoff games where they're home, and they force 2 turnovers. Well, the Eagles are or it was 44-1. So the Eagles are now the second team to have lost a game in that kind of circumstance since 1997. So you look at it that way, and you almost say, hey, the defense did their part because they almost did a historical thing. And it's really the offense in the first half that didn't hold up their end.
All right, last question here. Eagles-Colts, what's your pick?
I'm going to go Eagles 31-28 over the Colts. It's going to be a good game. I think it comes down to a Cody Parkey 50-plus yard field goal as the clock expires.
Are we all on the same hype train for Cody Parkey?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Eagles Almanac, Bleeding Green Nation. Brandon, great talking with you today. Absolutely fantastic.
Same here, Mike.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
No problem. Take care.
WWLR 91.5, the voice of Linden State College. We'll be right back after this.